One of the most challenging situations I have experienced as a priest is planning a funeral for a deceased person when the surviving family members are in disarray and in conflict. This creates additional suffering in an already painful situation. A long time ago, and in a parish far, far away, I even had fighting family members who requested 2 separate funerals for the same person so that they didn't have to be in church with each other at the same time. Fortunately, we were able to find a compromise that allowed all the grieving people to honor the deceased, to embrace their grief and say goodbye while avoiding additional interpersonal conflict. And what was the issue that caused this family rupture? Money, property, and inheritance. I hope that none of you has ever been in a similar situation, but I suspect some of you have. So I took quite a notice today when a man approaches Jesus and asks him to arbitrate a dispute that he's having with his brother. Tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me. This is all the context we get, but the request sounds reasonable, doesn't it? After all, the guy isn't asking to inherit more than his brother. He just wants Jesus to advocate for basic fairness. I get that. But Jesus responds almost harshly. Take care. Be on your guard against all kind of greed. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. Wait a minute. Since when is desiring fairness the same thing as being greedy? If that's not confusing enough, Jesus keeps going, telling his listeners this parable about a rich landowner who carefully stores his wealth ahead of his retirement, only to learn that his life is about to end. You fool! This very night, your life is being demanded of you. And the things you have prepared, whose will they be? Okay, now I'm really confused. What's wrong with planning ahead or planning for one's retirement? You don't know this, but my first career was in the life insurance industry. So I made a living helping people with these things for 5 years. What's wrong with saving for a rainy day? With making prudent choices when it comes to our wealth management? But hang on, there's still more. Jesus concludes the parable with one more warning. So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich toward God. What does that mean? What does it mean to be rich toward God? These are hard and uncomfortable questions. And maybe the best that we can do is wrestle with them. Jesus' logic and his values seem to be different than ours, as he suggests that there is an important spiritual dimension in the way we approach and use money. It's my opinion that we spend money on what is important to us. You want to find out someone's values? See how they spend their money. To me, in a free market, consumeristic economic system like ours, how we use money is a primary spiritual issue. But let me get off my soapbox and back to the gospel. Jesus looks at the man embroiled in a family feud over money. At least that's what I made up about it. He looks at him and he sees that his obsessive need for a fair share is twisting, gnarling, and embittering his heart. In the heat of his pursuit, he is not able to discern that his inner life might be in trouble. He can't see his own brother as anything more than an obstacle or a competitor. He's so concerned about possible scarcity that he doesn't even notice actual abundance, Jesus, standing right next to him. He's so narrowly focused on his economic affairs that he has no bandwidth for the salvation, the healing that Jesus is offering. Meanwhile, Jesus looks at the rich landowner reveling in his stores of grain, and Jesus sees a person drowning in self-absorption, a man enamored of his own power, a man oblivious to his own mortality. Did you notice the narcissism of his inner dialogue? I will do this. I will pull down my barns and I will build larger ones. And there I will store all of my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample goods laid up for yourself for many years. So relax, eat, drink, and be merry. In the carefully curated narrative of this proud, self-made man, Jesus sees an isolated, insecure soul who has forgotten human connection, forgotten God's generosity and provision, forgotten that possession is not the same thing as stewardship, and forgotten that in the face of death, we are all but naked paupers, but for the grace of God. But surely, folks, Jesus isn't talking about money. He's talking about our attachment and our attitude toward money, right? I don't know about that. If you read the Gospels, Jesus talks about money and possessions much more than anything else. Why? Because there's something about money that can distort us. There's something about it that makes us defensive. Something that makes it very hard for us to hear the gospel in its risky, scandalous, impolite, prodigal, imprudent, and radical fullness. There's something in money's allure that grabs hold of us and doesn't easily let go. Jesus concludes his lesson with an exhortation to be rich toward God, and it's a beautiful and inspiring phrase, but what does it mean? What does a heart, what does a lifestyle and a home and a bank account that is rich toward God, what does that look like? Well, maybe if we can infer from the lectionary reading, It means guarding against greed instead of obsessing over fairness. Maybe it means holding our mortality closer than we want to. In Benedictine spirituality, Benedict teaches his monks in chapter 4 of the Rule to hold the reality of death before their eyes daily. His spiritual sense is that if we reflect and really believe about the shortness of our life, we might live differently today. So, maybe it means asking hard questions about what really makes us feel secure and insecure. Maybe it means acknowledging that even our hard-earned, well-earned, self-earned wealth comes from God and belongs to God. Maybe it means prioritizing human interconnectedness over personal gain or asset management. Maybe it means dialoguing with God more ardently than we monologue with ourselves. Maybe it means holding human wisdom lightly, knowing that God's wisdom will almost always render our own foolish. In the parable, Jesus tells us, God confronts the rich landowner with the most chilling words. This very night, your life is being demanded of you. Are we listening? What would we change about our financial lives if we really believed this? What would we do differently if we believed that God does in fact demand our lives from us every single day in every single way? Because God does that, right? The call to follow Jesus on the road to Jerusalem is a daily, hourly, minute-by-minute call. It's also a dollar-by-dollar call. Think about that. It's a dollar-by-dollar call. If our lives have in fact been demanded of us, then how should we live? What should we leave behind? What should we carry forward? And what should we give away? Be rich toward God. Don't shy away. Be brave and wrestle with what that invitation means for you. Because the richness we spend on God is the only richness we will keep in the end.